Zoom? There you are.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to friends who are gathered here in Glasgow and those who are listening to us live from around the world. We are streaming this live with translations in Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So welcome, everyone. My name is Marcine Mitchell, and I am the Senior Vice President for Climate for the World Wildlife Fund in the U.S. And so welcome to our event, All in Net Zero, in the U.S. Climate Action Center, which is hosted by America is All In. So thank you. So today we are gathered here in Glasgow to align the world on a common purpose. We know we need to reduce our collective emissions to keep the global temperatures from rising above 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we know that the science is clear that this is the decade of action. We need to bend the curve this decade in order to achieve that essential goal. This is the decade that we must decouple human well-being with the burning of fossil fuels. This is the decade that we must shift our reliance to sustainable forms of renewable energy, clean transport, regenerative agriculture, and we must invest and reinvest in our natural ecosystems that sustain our life on Earth. This is the decade that we must cut global emissions in half, ramp up our climate preparedness, and usher in irreversible transition to net zero resilient societies by 2050. So national governments have a critical role to play to give us long-term signals, to have policies and investments that help us get there. But cities, states, tribal governments, businesses, investors, institutions of faith, culture, higher education, healthcare, and civil society, we are also all essential to this task. We need a whole of society approach to address the climate crisis. None of us can do it alone. All the institutions have to take part. We must align behind common objectives and work with each other based on respective roles, mandates to accelerate collective progress. And this approach needs to take hold around the world all at once, because ultimately we need to do this in every country. We all must be in to address the climate crisis. So this is the reason that Alliances for Climate Action, ACA, was created. ACA brings together climate leaders across every level of society in countries around the world to accelerate national processes of transition. The ACA national alliances do this by, one, scaling up climate actions from participating subnational and non-state actors. That means they scale up the actions within their sphere of influence and control. Two, they marshal domestic public support for climate action. So these are institutions that are close to the public, close to people, and we need to change hearts and minds and have people understand the urgency of the need for action. Three, they mobilize at the national level a unified call for ambitious climate targets. That's one of the reasons we're here today, to see national governments increase their climate targets, but also increase their actions and their policies and their financing to make those targets real. And also fourth, the ACA connects national alliances. So we don't feel that we're all working at this all alone. We have friends and alliances across the globe, and we're connected with each other for a global movement that is expanding this groundswell of climate action from the bottom up. So to date, the Alliances for Climate Action has established national alliances in 8 countries, which together account for more than 23% of the world's emissions. The US, Japan, Vietnam, South Africa, Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil. And more recently, Australia has joined the alliances, with over 6,000 institutions across the globe mobilized in support of climate ambition and action in these countries. WWS has been proud to convene and implement this effort together with our other global partners that include Avena Foundation, C40 Cities, CAN International, CDP, the Climate Group, We Mean Business Coalition, and our co-host for our COP26 program, the Stanley Center for Peace and Security. We're also working with many other leading partners at the national level and thousands of member institutions of these alliances. WWF has also been very proud to work with the UNFCCC high-level champions for COP25, Gonzalo Munoz, who we have here with us today, and COP26 high-level champion Nigel Topping, as an accelerator partner to the Race for Zero campaign. ACA has amplified the call to set credible and ambitious targets aligned with halving the emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2050. We have encouraged institutions in countries where the alliances are present to join the campaign and thereby expanding its reach and diversity. So today we are here to gather to bear witness to this growing momentum. It's great to see so many people in our audience with such enthusiasm. And we're going to hear from a wide variety of leaders, as demonstrated by the call to action to national governments and subnational actors issued by all alliances jointly ahead of COP26. We are bound together by a shared commitment to a whole of society approach. So let's get started with our program. First, we'll be joined by COP25 champion Gonzalo Munoz, who will give opening remarks. And then we will host the leaders from Chile, Brazil, Australia, Japan, Mexico, and the United States in 2 panels to explore this growing momentum. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Gonzalo Munoz.
Thanks so much, Marcin. Thank you to all of you for being here. Good Monday to those that are seeing us through the screen, or maybe good Tuesday. There might be some of them that are already tomorrow. Of course, as it always happens, I have a kind of script of what I should say. I'll try not to base on that, rather share with all of you a personal reflection, what has been my personal journey around the ACAS, and this is something that connects me so much to Mariana, Ricardo, Rama, and many of you, and Manuel, I don't know if he's here or maybe somewhere else, and what I feel like is the right strategy for the ACAS. And you can take it into consideration. 2 years ago was like the secret, not so secret plan. Now we can talk about much more like what the strategy and why the ACAS, the Alliances for Climate Action, are so extremely important and will be even more important in the future. So the role of the champions, first I have to explain that. So that the member states, the parties, already reached an agreement back in 2015 with the Paris Agreement. Let's imagine that's it, and that's amazing. That's incredible. Any of you that has participated in the process knows how beautiful that document is and how important it is for all of us to keep it safe and strengthen it. Then it comes to implement it, right? And when it comes to implement it, you have to implement it in 2 ways. When, on one side, we cannot allow the Paris Agreement to fail, right? We cannot allow countries to step aside of let's say, of the Paris Agreement. And probably just in that aspect, on sustaining the Paris Agreement, coming from those that are not signing the agreement, meaning the non-state actors, I simply cannot imagine a most amazing work than the one that we are still in, America, and now America is all in, has represented. You, Marcin, representing them, have gave the world the most brilliant example of what needs to happen. Of course, we need to rely on governments. We need to expect the governments to move faster and forward. We need them to raise the ambition. But we all have to not to be naive and understand that in certain moments that might not be happening. And when that moment comes, we need to follow your leadership and understand that it comes to the subnational governments, to the financial institutions, to the NGOs, to the business sector, to really carry the load, to really bring that to our backpack and implement the national economic contributions of the country. As simple as that. We don't have time to waste for an electionary cycle when it comes to potential governments that are not necessarily doing the job that they promise and the job that society requires all and the future expects from us. As simple as that. So when it comes to those countries that might not be as progressive as we require in terms of climate, well, the ACAs are there for. And if those countries that are doing the right job, they require a common voice. They require all of the non-state actors to align in terms of what might be potential barriers, what might be the right type of regulations, what might be the types of incentives that will not only implement the agenda as it is, but also move it faster and forward. So the ACAs can play several roles absolutely independent of the level of ambition at the national level. That was absolutely clear to me when I was invited to the role in terms of the role of the champions to mobilize all non-state actors toward the implementation of the Paris Agreement. I cannot imagine a better way than doing it locally in each of the countries. But then we saw a failure because we have a platform for operating. Let's say the champions is the Marrakesh Partnership. If you check the Marrakesh Partnership, 80% approximately are organizations based in the north. 80% have their headquarters, and I'm not saying that the WWF doesn't have like really good roots and foot everywhere, but your headquarters are in Switzerland, right? I mean, you are a northern-based organization. Same thing happened with most of the organizations that are represented at the Marrakesh Partnership. So the conversation there is biased. The conversation there is failing, and that is not necessarily allowing us to extract the richness of each of the regions of the world. So by implementing the ACAs everywhere, not only in 8 countries, maybe a 9th country today, I don't know, am I allowed to say it? Because I'm carrying the pin. Not yet? Okay. Maybe a 9th country today, which I'm very proud of and personally connected to, but the point is that we need ACAs in every continent. We need not only ACAs in every country, maybe not every, but most of the countries. Of course, I'm dreaming of having them in all of the countries. But if we set the conditions for having a, let's say what is happening now in South America, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, another country soon, then maybe another, I can say, okay, Chile now, great, fantastic, well done, team. And then we can develop a network of ACAs that can allow that region to be properly represented in the Marrakesh Partnership and be used for landing all of the knowledge, all of what's happening in the Marrakesh Partnership into that region, again, becoming the right sounding board that is putting together the subnational governments, the financial institutions, the private sector, the academia, the civil society, all together toward the same goal. As you said, Marcin, it's about the race to zero, it's about the urgency of moving towards the net zero emissions by 2050, but halving the emissions by 2030. It's about the short-term goal, but then it's also the race to resilience. We're here in the Resilience Day. And for the race to resilience, we have a goal that is increasing the resilience of 4 billion people in this decade. So those two goals are matching in the same day, and we do expect that, of course, the ACAs will be, again, not only an accelerator of race to zero, but then an accelerator of race to resilience, and an implementator locally of the climate action pathways and the breakthrough that we have been developing. So my team is telling me that I have to run for the next, can I stay like a whole day here? No? I love this, honestly, and you know it. I mean, all of you. I'm personally passionate about the idea, and I'm so proud of what we are announcing today. And you, I mean, happy to be involved in any ACAs around the world, because this is probably the idea, the most strong idea that will allow us to fulfill the Paris Agreement and make everyone, every single element of the society in each of the countries be connected in a very concrete way. So sorry, Juan y Rama. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gonzalo.
Alcalde, I think that we have a moment here because I'm leaving now. Yes, I'm so sorry.
We're going
that
to take a, right, it'd be great to take a picture.
No, I mean, if you can take the microphone very rapidly.
Well, sorry.
This is what happens when you feel at home.
Well, thank you. I'm begging your pardon. And the city of Monterrey is the first city to ever declare a climate emergency in Mexico. We're the second largest metropolitan area in our country, but we are the most polluted city in all of Latin America. So, in the name of the city of Monterrey, which I recently took office about a month ago, I hereby subscribe the agreement to race to zero and decarbonize Monterrey by the year 2050.
Well, I do expect that this will be the example for many others to join this week. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Oh, so thank you, Gonzalo, for your leadership, your collaboration, and absolutely your infectious enthusiasm. It's been really great. And congratulations to Monterrey for joining the Race to Zero. It's really great. We're very, very happy to see that. So I'd now like to welcome our 4 distinguished guests for our first panel. Ricardo Bosshard, who is the CEO of WWF-Chile. Claudio Castro, who is the mayor of Renca, Chile. Axel Schmidt Graal, who is the mayor of the city of Niterói, Brazil. And is Dr. Virginia Marshall, who is the executive member of the Indigenous Peoples Organization. Is she here with us? Okay, so we have Lisa stepping in. Thank you so, so much. So let's start with Ricardo. Ricardo, today is an important day for Chile. We've heard our announcement that in terms of Chile joining us. So can you please tell us what WWF-Chile and other subnational actors on the ground have been working on?
Yes, thank you and welcome here, and hopefully many people listen to us through the internet, and I will give the word to Claudio to present the lunch. But just want to follow up on our very contagious Gonzalo champion. And I have to say, for many years, he said, Ricardo, you have to pick the ball in Chile. He said, why? I mean, we have a government, he's pushing so hard. I mean, the conditions are there. The COP will be in Chile, was in Madrid, but the conditions are here. Why do we need an extra layer of work? And really, you know, you saw him. There's no way telling no, but his vision is the right vision. I'm fully convinced that alliances, yes, the negotiation inside are extremely important, but there are other governments like the municipalities, the governments that need to work, and they have to find a safe space to really connect. So I give the word to launch officially our alliance in Chile, which we did it very quickly because the bases were there, like Claudio's municipality that has been working for so long.
I'm to be here. I'm the mayor of Renca. Renca is one of the 36 municipalities in Santiago. In Santiago, we don't have a city government. We have these 36 municipalities. So we face a lot of challenges, including inequality. We face urban inequality, but also environmental inequality. And the northwest area of Santiago, where Renca is based, receive all the pollution of the rest of the city. We are in kind of an heat island. And we have higher temperatures in summer, lower temperatures in winter. And this year, only this year, we faced 23 critical episodes related to air quality, while in the rest of the city, they had just 15. So for us, it's urgent, like in the rest of the world, to act when we speak about climate change. And also Renca is one of the poorest boroughs in the city of Santiago. So That's why we face inequality, and that's why we are so happy to be, first of all, joining the Race to Zero initiative. The same that Monterrey, we made that a couple of months ago, and that will help us to do something different than what we were doing until now. We have a bunch of different initiatives related to energy efficiency, to air quality, to reforestation. We have the Renca Hills, which we want them to be a green lung in Santiago. But what we were not doing was to measure. So with the Renca, the Race to Zero initiative, for the first time we will start making our baseline, and now we can set the goals that we want to get on 2030 and also 2050. And we are learning also some things. For example, when we made the baseline related to energy consumption, in Renca, the industries based in Renca, they use 92% of the energy in our area of the city. So for us it's crucial, it's very important to coordinate, articulate actions in order to get our goals. So that's why we are so happy to be here in Glasgow, but also in a couple of hours some other municipalities will be, another NGO, academy and government actors will be in Santiago launching the first ACA, or the ACA Chile, which will allow us to coordinate all this action, to push also with our urgency in the local government and with our communities, to push the central government to go faster in this all the action needed to get our goals. But also in Chile, we are facing a very important moment. We are in the middle of the discussion for a new constitution. So this is not only about the central government, it's also about the next decades in Chile. And I think that ACA Chile will have a central role with our organized community, with the NGOs, with the local governments, with the industry, with the universities, to also engage the people who is discussing the new constitution in Chile, to put there all the urgency of the goals that we need. And as our representatives in the constitution discussion say, the only solution is the eco-constitution. So I also send our greetings to the people that is discussing the new constitution in Chile, and from ACA Chile, with all these actors together, we'll be pushing you to go further and to helping us also in the local governments with the decentralization, to get more power with our people, with our neighbors, to act faster in these great goals. So thank you very much, and we are happy to be here launching.
So congratulations, Mayor Castro and Ricardo. It's really fantastic to see Chile join the ACA alliances, and to see a new set of core institutions ready to work together to speed the transformation, the economic transformation of Chile. So we look forward to working with you and with ACA Chile in this endeavor. This has actually been a very exciting year for the Alliances for Climate Action, because despite the COVID pandemic, we also saw the emergence of two other alliances this year, countries in kind of different ways from Chile. We have joined, Australia has joined us, and Brazil. So we'd like to introduce Mayor Graal and welcome. Your city is part of the ACA Brazil that was launched in January of 2021. So thank you for being part of this growing group of subnational institutions committed to working together to tackle the climate crisis in Brazil. So can you tell us, Mayor, a little bit about your city's commitment to climate action and why your city joined this alliance? What do you see as ACA Brazil's unique contribution to accelerating the transition to a net zero resilient society in Brazil?
Well, thank you very much. The city of Niterói is part of the Rio de Janeiro metropolitan area. We are across the bay from Rio de Janeiro, and a city that 12 years ago went through a landslide disaster, and we lost many lives And the city has such a long tradition in sustainability and environmental activism. So today, the city of Niterói is probably the city with the largest investment in sustainable implementation of sustainable policies. We are the first city in Brazil to have a climate authority, to have a secretary of climate, which is Luciano Paes, right here in front of us. So there's just like my colleague from Chile said, we have a large effort to plant the forest back where on the slopes, on the mountains, so we can protect those slopes. And we are maybe have the largest investment in sustainable drainage and implementing parks. So, but our ambition has to be much more than just doing our part. We need to have other cities working together on our metropolitan area and the country as a whole. And specifically in Brazil, as we have a lack of leadership at the national level, is very important, very strategic to strengthen the local initiatives, the local policies, and a lot has been done about that. And we are here in Glasgow to show that there is a lot happening in Brazil, especially at the cities and the state levels. In that sense, I'm also the vice president of the Brazilian Mayors Association. So we joined ACA this year and many other initiatives like the Race to Zero and other initiatives. So we can spread this word around and get more support in other cities and other states. And also ACA has there's there are corporations, there are NGOs, and other collective organizations of cities taking part. So it's very important that we can spread this to the rest of the country. So that's my contribution here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very, very much, Mayor. We know how important Brazil is to this fight in climate change. And I feel a camaraderie coming from the U.S. in terms of the importance of the subnational and the non-state actors in really raising this, for our countries. So we really thank you. We're very appreciative of you and ACA Brazil bringing your voices and bringing your power and bringing your energy to this issue. So now I'd like to turn to Australia. And Lisa, can you introduce yourself? Congratulations on the launch of Better Futures Australia, and it happened this past August. And so we'd love to hear from you, and why did BFA come into being, and why it is important into the Australian context, another important country that really needs grassroots, bottom-up type of pushing to be part of this climate action. So.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martine. It's great to be here. Oh, that's better. And apologies from Dr. Virginia Marshall, a First Nations leader from Australia. She's actually being called into she's the Pacific delegate for Indigenous peoples, so she's in important discussions there and sends her apologies. So Better Futures Australia launched off the back of the terrible bushfires we had in 2019-2020, where we really saw a lot of people, business leaders, subnational governments, the states, the territories, the mayors, really coming together and saying, how can we work together to contribute to a greater whole and provide that national level of ambition that our federally elected representatives are not providing. And I'm sure hopefully you've all made a trip over to the Australia Pavilion and seen that that the Australian government does not reflect the interests of the majority of Australians. So what we're seeing with Better Futures Australia is that we represent, with our more than 110 signatories of cities, businesses, investors, pension funds, health organisations, hospitals, regional councils, academia, universities, the list goes on. What we're seeing, and importantly, Virginia, with more than 300 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups, developed this report to send a message to the Australian delegation because their voices were not included in what they brought to COP26 this year. So what we're seeing is we're representing more than 7 million Australians and more than 330 billion in economic activity. So those interests are saying, we do not see a future in fossil fuels. Australia is still one of the largest world exporters of coal and gas, and that needs to end. We can see the opportunities to turn Australia to become a renewable energy export superpower, and all of the work, the expertise, the skills, the energy is there, and Better Futures Australia is bringing the energy and the willingness to work together across sectors with all levels of government, including our federal colleagues, and we're really looking forward to seeing what opportunities are there. And definitely seeing a lot of great lessons to learn set by the wonderful sister alliances around the world, and really inspired by hearing about all the great activities underway, and really looking forward to working out how we can work together more collectively to drive global ambition. Thank you.
So thank you all so much for sharing with us the power of a whole of society approach. I think you had a chance to see how important it is, and particularly in countries where national governments are not necessarily leading, how important it is that we still do not give up hope, that we still press on, that we still work together, and how much we can achieve from the bottom up by joining these alliances. So let's give a hand of applause to all of our panelists right now who've done such a great job, and encourage them to keep going back to their countries and keep going. So great. Let me now introduce Nikki Bartlett, Chief Impact Officer for CDP and a global partner of ACCA, who will moderate the next panel. So thank you, panelists.
So thank you, and it's such an extraordinary privilege to be here today. I have been working with the powerhouse Mariana, who this was your baby so many years ago, and it's amazing to see how it's grown from something. The real vision of this alliances is taking that extraordinary ambition that have been shown by non-state actors in the global space and really realizing that in the politics, and providing the infrastructure for folks to be able to connect in from all different walks of society and link into this process. It's so exciting to see every single COP. It just grows from strength to strength. Really proud to be a partner of it at CDP. I think I heard someone say this morning, Tom Steyer at an event, and I thought it was a really powerful way of framing the next 10 years. It's actually 8 years, right? You know, we've had a decade of strategy, more than a decade of strategy, and we need to move into the decade of execution and accountability. This is it, right? The folks we have now, they're it. And we've got 8 years to halve those emissions. And at the same time, we know that the nationally determined contributions, if we analyze them, will give us a 16% rise by 2030. Now, we know we will get that half out of groups like this. But that's what tells us, you know, how hard, well, not how hard, how challenging, but also how exciting this journey will be. We know we can do it. We know we have the folks here on board who actually need to make things happen on the ground. But it is a big task for all of us. So really exciting to have this panel where we move from the expansion of the network and move into like, okay, how do we make this happen? How do we increase that ambition? What's our implementation for it? So we get practical. We have today with us very exciting folks. We've got Luis Donaldo Colosio Riojas, my apologies. Fuji-san, the Chief Investment Officer and Head of ESG for Nesse Asset Management Corporation, and Kelly King, who is the Chair of the Climate Action, Resilience and Environment Committee of Maya County in Hawaii. So a fantastically diverse panel in front of us, different voices talking about different parts of the role that they need to play. I'm going to first turn to the Mayor of Monterrey. I know you have some exciting news today. I know that you've committed a city which is the industrial heartland of Mexico and potentially for Latin America more broadly to this journey, and really want to hear about the commitment you have and how you're linking up with the actors, and what are the first steps that you're going to take as mayor to really drive this forward in your city?
Well, first of all, hello again. We recently took office in Monterrey. Out earlier is the second largest metropolitan area in Mexico, and the urban design around Monterrey during decades has always been centered around the vehicle, never around people. So people-centered design for urban planning is paramount in order to correct and prevent global warming. So a developed city like Monterrey needs to rehabilitate all its infrastructure. That takes years of planning, and of course it takes enormous amounts of resources. But we need to start to also realize that if we hope to meet our NDCs in time, we really need to have cities take a much more strong and protagonic role on this mitigation of climate crisis. I mean, we must realize that cities and people that live in them, we are responsible for over 70% of greenhouse emissions all over the world. So in order for countries to really get there in time, without the support of cities and citizens, we're really not going to get there. So this is where Monterrey has to stand out, speak up, and recognize our unfortunate contribution to the problem, but then also realize that we have the opportunity to create solutions. So we came here to Glasgow, first of all, to declare, well, to implement our climate action plan. And the first and most important part is declaring a climate emergency for Monterrey. We know that more than 2,000 cities all over the world have already done this, but we were the first city in our country to do so. And we're already late in doing so, but it had to be done. For this to not only be talk, we need to walk the walk, as you say. So, in order for us to have accountability, we realize that citizens are a key factor. So for that, we are joining very strong initiatives, and for that I appreciate and I am very thankful for the Alliance for Climate Action in Monterrey, especially Perla Martinez, who is responsible for us being here. You know, she started all of it. And through that alliance, we recognize the implement in its public policies. So we're joining initiatives like Cities Race to Zero, which we just did, Cities Race to Resilience, so that we can decarbonize Monterrey by 2050, yeah, but also meet our short and medium-term goals in this time span. We will implement a Green Deal for Monterrey, which means basically sitting down at the same table all the key stakeholders of the city so that we can create constructively a new regulation for climate change locally. Because we need to realize that we need to localize our NDCs if we really hope for this to work. For this to also work, we need to know what we're up against. Monterrey has no greenhouse gas inventory yet. So we need to do that as soon as possible in order to know what we're up against and what are we going to do for the time being. What are the major sources of pollution and what are the key factors for us to mitigate that pollution in the short time span that we have. And finally, a climate action program with a green project portfolio constituting a series of projects for sustainability, decarbonization, city resilience, and of course, climate change mitigation. And this, is part of what we're here for, to have this connection, this network of contacts and access to the international community and funding, so we can implement this locally, with or without the support of our federal government, because that, politics most of the time get in the way of the important things getting done. And we're not going to allow that, because we don't have time for that.
Thank you, Mayor. We definitely don't have the time for that. And I know that this year Monterrey was disclosed to CDP, so I'm sure you're about to go through that footprinting journey. There's many, many tools that can help with that. We work with ICLE and the Global Covenant of Mayors and C40, and there's a whole machinery to support that, at first, very onerous accounting job, after which you really know where those impacts lie, and you can lean in. So congratulations and thank you for your leadership. I'm going to turn to Kelly, and then I'll come to you, Fuji-san, after that, if that's all right. Kelly, if you can tell us, from your regional perspective, how have you seen how critical this non-state actor behavior is on the ground, particularly in the United States, where we've seen the real momentum for the last 5-6 years has been driven by folks on the ground from across society? What would you like to contribute from the Hawaiian perspective for how we drive this forward across the whole of the United States?
Well, thank you so much for that question, Nikki, and thank you for having me here. I want to give a shout out to the previous speakers who have talked about the issues in their countries, because we are back in with President Biden, and people like me could not be happier. But we have a level of government at our federal level that is not all in. So we have a very divided Congress and U.S. Senate. So it is going to be grassroots. And when our previous president took us out of the Paris Climate Agreement, that was almost a kickstart for a lot of these communities to just say, no, we're in. We're back in. Maui County was one of the first counties in the United States to get back in as soon as we heard that. Back in 2019, we passed a resolution declaring the climate emergency. And the conversation was really interesting because people are trying to kick it back to committee. Well, maybe we should discuss this in committee and decide what that means. And I was saying, when your house is on fire, you don't take a meeting, you grab a hose. So I convinced them to approve that. And then just this last year, our state became, the state of Hawaii became the first state in the United States to declare the climate emergency. So, partially because we're on the forefront of sea level rise and climate change issues, but also because we recognize our environment is our life. And unfortunately, we put too much into the tourism industry, so we're trying to correct that now. But our state, back in the mid-2000s, in 2008, we passed, I was asked to talk a little bit about goal setting. We passed the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, which required by 2030 to be 70% renewable. And some of that was going to come from efficiencies and conservation. But the talk around that back then was, we don't know how we're going to get there, so we can't put this in state statute. Well, those of us who believed in it understand that we're not going to get there if we don't know where we're going. We know where we're going if we don't get there, because we saw climate change happening. And then in 2015, when Governor Ige took office, he declared that we were going to be 100% renewable in our utility by 2045. And we heard the exact same argument. We don't know how we're going to get there, so why should we put this in state statute? We did it anyway, and guess what? People started figuring out how to get there. Just last week, our utility announced they will be 70% renewable by 2030. So they were one of the ones in the forefront saying, we can't put this in statute because we don't have a pathway there. And now developed a pathway there because it is the state goal. So I think it's very important for states and counties to set these goals, because even if you don't know exactly how you're going to get there, Maui County has gone all in with our, this last year we've been pushing. We just passed a couple of days ago the second reading on my bill to make all new large homes of 5,000 square feet and larger have to be built to net zero standards. And the state has a goal of that, and they're going to be building on what we've done in Maui County to get to not only large homes, but to start to get to retrofitting existing homes. So Maui has been really at the forefront of the state. We've been working with the state. We get a lot of support from our state government. You know, I've gotten calls from, we just passed the most stringent sunscreen bill in the world, because we're eliminating all chemical sunscreens, not just a litany of chemical names, but the only two sunscreens you're gonna be able to use if you come to Maui County are titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. And we had state legislators who were not able to get that passed at the state level because it got watered down, call me up and say, you go girl. You know, so we've got really good support at the state level, at the federal level now. I mean, honestly, when Biden took over, when our president Biden took over, every time I heard him speak about this, I just wanted to cry, because it's such a different attitude right now. We have compassion, we have understanding of what's happening, we have a push for equity in our transition and diversity. And I also just got confirmed a couple months ago for the Local Government Advisory Committee of the Environmental Protection Agency. So the excitement about having local governments involved in these decisions and having the most diverse Local Government Advisory Committee ever for the EPA was palpable. You know, I wanted to share that with you. And the last thing I wanted to share, because I was also asked to talk about how America could influence other countries. And my husband, just last week, my husband was in a meeting with one of the largest engine companies, Wabtec, that does supplies 80% of the engines for rail in the country. And they were looking at, well, you know, the conversation with some of their offices in other countries was, we are only doing this for the United States because the United States is the only one supporting this. But then my husband pointed out that no, what's happening is our corporations are forcing other countries. If you want to supply us, Google and Amazon, they don't want to, you know, Google uses an incredible amount of energy for their databases. They don't want to do it on fossil fuel anymore. So it's going to be up to our grassroots and our corporations to put pressure on other countries, but it also helps for other countries to continue the pressure on the United States, because we know we're not where we should be, and we should be making bigger goals. And we need you guys to counteract some of the social media and the fake news and the misinformation that's coming to our general populace, because that's what's going to save us, I think, is boots on the ground and the people speaking up and saying, we've had enough of this. We're hearing that in the protests outside. And it's really good to hear the honesty on this stage, really. I really appreciate people talking about what's happening at the federal level or what's not happening. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Kelly. And yes, I do really appreciate the honesty on this stage. I think it is going to come from the people, and the counteracting that voice does mean it needs to be the business voices, the mayors and others. The people on the ground. And what I really liked about your story as well was the linking up you have now, because Maui County is so further ahead, some of the others now in Hawaii linking up with you. And I think that's really, really important, this networking, not just global to the national, and then but within, so that within the countries there really is this link up, and because there will be so many more businesses, investors, cities that are already doing it or have already learned. And that linking up is so fundamental, so that people can just leapfrog to where they need to be. And I think people just really want, I think they're delighted to know that there is a community of others when they get the bug, right? That they can go to someone and there's actually a whole world that can open up to them. So that's why these kind of networks are so important. I'm going to turn over to you, Fuji-san. So we're going from Mexico, we've been to Hawaii, and we're now on our way to Japan. And a voice from the finance sector, really, really critical in this agenda. And I know we've been working with you as a CDP signatory for many years. You've been on this journey for many, many years. And it's really exciting to see the push that's come from Japanese business in the Japan Climate Initiative, from Japanese investors, from cities, from across Japan. How has it helped to be part of that network? And why, as a large asset manager, have you set a climate action plan that's 1.5 degree aligned? What was the motivation for that?
Thank you very much, Nicolette. This is Fuji from Nisei Asset Management. Nisei Asset Management is a wholly owned subsidiary of Nippon Life Insurance Company in Japan. So with managing around $300 billion of asset under management. So first, I'm going to talk about the motivation to be in a net zero asset managers initiative. So I think first of all, the problem of climate change is so critical and so huge not to be solved by one person, or one company, and one country. So that's why we think we're going to have to, all of us must do it. So to be honest, I'm not sure how we can achieve actually our net zero goal. So it's really a journey. So for journey, I think the decision of the top management is very important. So in our case, our CEO suggested us, let's go on the journey together. So that's why we joined net zero asset management. But I think this decision would have been very difficult to make unless the government committed to it. So as you know, the previous Suga administration committed to it, and the current Kishida new administration took over it. So there's no reason not to join, not to join to net zero initiative at this moment. So the second motivation is that the importance of climate change on corporate value is very increasing. So for example, we have integrated ESG factor into our investment decision since 2008. And in this context, the stock performance of high E rating was not so good until 2014. However, the performance has been dramatically positive since 2015. So remember, 2015 is the year of Paris Agreement and SDGs was implemented. So the stock market has been changed since then. And therefore, it's no longer possible for us investment manager not to take climate change into consideration. That's the second one. And lastly, Japanese companies have a lot of advanced technologies. On the other day, we had a panel discussion with Toyota Motor Corporation. Toyota has the largest number of patents on hydrogen in the world. And they explained that hydrogen is extremely useful and effective, not only for automobiles, but also for a wide range of applications such as power generation, power transmission, and power storage, and so on. So Japan has such advanced technologies. So I believe that supporting and encouraging those technologies is a role of our asset management company for long-term reduction in CO2 emissions. Next, I would like to talk about the significance of JCI, I think top right on the screen. So I believe the collaboration is key to climate change overall. And it is very important for asset managers to collaborate not only with a corporation, but also with asset owners and also the government. And however, it is very difficult for just one company to make an engagement with the government. So I think it is very helpful that an organization like JCI unite our voices and take action to the government. In fact, our CEO was able to speak directly with the former Minister of Regulatory Reform and also express our opinions to the Prime Minister directly at the Prime Minister offices. with JCI members. So they also sometimes unite, I think JCI also sometimes unite many voices in newspaper ads, making requests to the government. So in this sense, I think JCI has a significant role to tackle together for future generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Kosio and Fuji-san and Kelly for joining us. And thank you for telling us of those, I think that really interesting piece you set about, it is a very similar tale there from the top down, right? Setting the goal and then putting it into policy, putting it onto the books, setting that ambition, even though you don't know how you're going to get there, you know, come with me on the journey. I found that a really amazing way of saying it. And I think that kind of linked, even though you're working in such different places with such different challenges, it's the same sort of mantra that's driving you. I also noticed the climate emergency piece running underneath us again, just we need to declare it. Then also really glad to hear about the race to resilience and you know, I think the race to resilience under the race to zero is really, really extraordinary. We see that many, many city-states and regions haven't even done an assessment, and this, you know, climate impact will impact people on the ground, and those are the people they're going to impact. So we really need to see folks join that race. Really glad to be part of it. And I think finally the finance piece is so critical, right? I mean, that's where the capital comes from. And, you know, there's been this dreadful phrase that's been used around the COP, because a lot of this last week was Finance Week. You know, there was so much going on. They call it the Investment Week, the Investment COP. But they call it the plumbing. So that's what the world that I live in, right? The dull bit of accounting, the wiring of the system in the background. They're now naming it as the plumbing, which I find appalling. But anyway, that the plumbing needs to shift, right? This is not about green finance. This is about greening the finance system, and that means changing the plumbing. And when that happens, then that industrial base and that technology base and the work of the investment that you need to have happens, but only when that is unlocked. So I'd like to thank you all and for being with us today. Really extraordinary 2 sets of panels to really see the tangible. It's extraordinary how much this has moved, Mariana. We can no longer stay on the sidelines. We've got 8 years. We need to take part in the deep transformation, all of us. And this network can really help us to unlock it. The time to act is now. We have the tools. We know what we need to do. So join us on this journey. Thank you.